Hello, this is Douglas Robinson with DefEdit Software LLC. This video is a working session for our DashCAM map that we will be releasing hopefully in the near future. Right now this map is for copying and multiplying a dashboard several different times with an independent set of widgets for each dashboard, because this is an issue that a lot of Cherwell administrators have experienced. Is a user asks for a new dashboard or their own copy or version of a dashboard, and what they get is a copy of that dashboard with the same widgets. So they get the same widgets that show up on the other dashboard, and they may inadvertently modify a widget that they think is theirs and also impact other users looking at the other copy or copies of that dashboard. So the goal with this map is that when we say we want to copy a dashboard, we're going to copy the dashboard and then create a copy of every single widget that's linked to that dashboard and then relink that widget up to the dashboard. Now, part of this is going to be done in Cherwell, and then part of this is going to be a separate executable that's developed using Visual Studio. But we're going to go over some of the things that we've developed within Cherwell, because we want to put up YouTube videos about Cherwell, as well as how we're going to be interfacing with that external app using Cherwell. So far, I've got a business object created, and it's labeled, it's not in the new menu, which is kind of funny. This business object is labeled DashCAM by DefEdit Software. There's a supporting object which is labeled DashCAM widget, and we can see that under one of our relationships here. So where we see DashCAM widget metadata, this, I don't have the form view pulled up. This record just holds our widget's def ID, the scope, and the scope owner that we're pulling out of that dashboard, and we'll go over how we're doing that. And we have two other fields, the widget name and widget type, which we're auto-populating from the system table of Trebuchet widgets because it's not held in the dashboard's XML. I'll display that here for a second. So when we talk about dashboard, a lot of this is going to be pulling information directly out of the Cherwell database. Here on this notepad file is a very simplified rundown of the structure of the dashboard XML. You've got a trebuchet tag, which is common across all of your XML definitions in Cherwell, a dashboard def tag, which you can see off on the left here, a root widget holder def tag, which, hang on, takes a little while for me to find this one. There it is. There's your root widget holder def tag. Then you've got a widget tag underneath that. There it is. And then from there, you have a widget holder list. That's where your actual widgets are. So what we're doing with this map is we're pulling in the dashboard that you select with a prompt, and we'll go over that in very short order. And then we're cycling through every widget holder definition in this list to get the contents of that widget. And the reason I said that we're auto-populating the name and type of that widget is the reference to the widget itself doesn't include the name. So here's the contents of the dashboard that actually specify what widget's being used for an individual widget. We've got an ID and a scope and scope earner, which is just, here's where the widget's located, go find it. So that's at the end of our little structure here. So what we're doing is we take that ID and scope owner, and we're auto-populating with some filters on that. So with all that said, with what we've got so far, I'll run through a new record here so we can show what exactly this does. Right now I've got 4 links. Only 3 of them do things so far. I was just about to finish the 4th one when I decided I'll record this. So our first link, you click on it, it tells you you're about to be prompted to select a dashboard. Go to the dashboard section of the next page and select the dashboard you like to export, copy, and multiply. This is important because I wanted to show you the choose action dialog in Cherwell rather than an ugly prompt that I'd have to build on my own. So what this does is, well, I'll select a dashboard first and then we'll go over how it's built. So I can go to the dashboards page. I can actually pick other types of actions, like a one-step, for example, And if I do, I've set it up so that it tells you the item you've selected is not a dashboard. You have to click on it again. So we have to go to Dashboards and select a dashboard. When we do, it says, hey, your dashboard's been selected, IT Level 1 Home. Well, what that does, right here at least, is it goes into, let me open that field. I'm going to do it from the form designer. So this one step here has a few simple actions. One of them is the pop-up we saw. The next one is just a show legal values on a field I've created called dashboard details. And then we run a one step to get the ID out of that dashboard details field. Well, let's look at that field. So this dashboard details field doesn't have much on it as far as validation goes, but it's holding an action command. Now, if you've worked with the status tables in Cherwell, you know what that action command does. When you hold an action command on one field, and if you hold an action name on another field, you can do something pretty special. You can have a show legal values command execute against your action command field, and it gives you that really lovely prompt that we just saw, where you can decide, all right, I'm going to pick a dashboard, a one-step, a command, anything else, and it stores the information for that in your field, which is great. So I've got a field here, and I've just named it Dashboard Details, and this holds information about the dashboard. Now, in Notepad++ here, I've got the actual contents that get written into that field. There's a trebuchet tag. It's always going to be XML format. There's a trebuchet tag, there's an action info def tag, and then here's an ID. This is not the ID of the dashboard. This is the ID of this action info def, of this one reference to that dashboard. So when I say we had a one step to get the ID for this thing, there's actually, here it is. There's actually a set of parameters in here for that, and I've got another tab open. I've been using this freeformatter.com website to format some of the XML in this in our Cherwell system, because previously I had a plugin for it in Notepad++, and the current version of Notepad++ doesn't come with the plugin manager, so I couldn't just add the plugin I wanted to, and that was a whole mess. So right now I'm just using this website for convenience. But here's our same action info def, where we use that action command and we select a dashboard with a prompt. Here's what gets stored into that field for that reference for later on. That's the ID, that's just for the action info def. And then you'll notice there's a parameter list here. The first parameter is named command. There's no command associated with this. Second one is ID. And then you got scope, scope owner, folder, stuff like that. But right now I'm just focusing on ID because most of our dashboards are going to have the same ID. We'll update this later on to focus on scope and scope owner and stuff like that. So that's where we're getting our dashboard ID from. And I've got a field for dashboard def ID, but it's difficult to just pull it into that field. So what I've had to do, so I have a one step called get dashboard ID. This is the one that was run with that run a one step action we looked at earlier. Here's get ID, and this is pointed at our dashboard details field. It doesn't actually get ID. I should really modify this. This is supposed to be get parameter list. What I had done is I tried doing this with a single variable action, and it didn't work. So we've got our action info def, and then we've got an element collection, which is our parameter list. And for those of you who aren't familiar with element collections, that just means we went to the action info def element in this XML, and then we found this parameter list. Now in Cherwell, they handle their XML formatting pretty well. Anytime you see the word list, you know it's an XML collection. There's a series of parameter elements that are getting repeated here. So next we're using not a step through children, but a step through collection action to loop through each of the items in this XML collection. So when we use step through collection, we pass it a variable that holds a list or a collection like parameter list, and it executes through each child element in that's part of that list. So it's going to loop through every parameter here, which is fantastic. So that's our parameter list. You'll notice I formatted that variable as an XML collection because you have to have that data type when you put in a collection to step through. We've got an item variable name at the bottom of this, which is basically a variable that will hold the current item in the list that we're looping through. And I've named that current dashboard parameter. What we're doing here is we're pulling out the parameter name from the attribute name. And what this does is when we're looking at this line, you'll notice we've got a parameter tag. That's all. It's one tag. There's no start and end XML like there is for example, here's the start of my action info def. Here's the end of my action info def. No. It's just a single, here's my parameter. Well, this name equals quotes command, name equals quotes ID. That's an attribute. The attribute is name, and then the item that's on the other side of the equals is the value. So we want the value, which would be ID in the case of what we're looking for, of the name attribute. And that's what this string from attribute does, as compared to string from element, which searches for a child element. So that gets us our parameter name, and then we've got a set ID action. And this checks for that parameter name equaling the word ID, because there's a couple of these, and we only need to execute this once for the ID string. What this does is it sets dashboard def ID to the current parameter, and it just takes the text between the start tag for the parameter and the end tag for the parameter, because I had a little trouble parsing the value out. So that's what this one-step action does. That's how we're getting the dashboard ID. And behind the scenes, we've got a relationship to the Trebuchet widgets table to pull in the dashboard's information. There's a relationship over here that says DashCAM owns selected dashboard. This links to our Trebuchet widgets table in the database with the filtering criteria that def type equals dashboard def and def ID equals our business objects dashboard def ID. Later, I need to add filters on this so that the scope and scope owner match, so that if somebody copies this into a team folder, it doesn't screw things up. But that's how that works. Next, let's look over the action that we built to scan dashboard widgets. This item is kind of cool. So once you've selected your dashboard, I've got a link here, and you click here to scan dashboard widgets, and you'll just magically see all of the widgets on that dashboard appear at the bottom of the screen. There's actually a lot more than this. There's like 35 different things on that dashboard that count as widgets. And the ones that show up here are the ones that are tied to stored widgets. So if you've got a link on a dashboard, it shows up as a widget that doesn't really have a def ID because it's just a link, but it's the way they structure it, it counts as a widget. So when I go into this one step, we're importing the contents of our dashboard through that relationship, which is why this token says v_trebuchet widgets. And then I've got a variable here that says scope to widget holder list. This takes the contents of that dashboard's details, and it finds, this might be better with a visual cue here. This goes and it basically loops through this structure here. So it looks for our dashboard def, then the widget holder def, then the widget, and then the widget holder list. And that's an XML collection of a widget holder ID, or of widget holder tags that we can loop through. So you can see we've got, alright, we always start out on the first line, which means we don't have to worry about this trebuchet thing. We're just going to find dashboard def, then we're going to go another level lower and grab the root widget holder def. Then we're going to go another level holder and grab that first structure of widget. And then we're going to find the widget holder list. That's an XML collection. The others are just elements. So once we get down to this find element collection for widget holder list, we're putting this into a dashboard widget holder list XML collection variable, and then we've got a step through collection action that loops through it. Very similar to the other action that we used to get the def ID out of a parameter list. So we've got a step through collection action here on our dashboard widget holders and a variable for current widget holder. And what this does is it gets the widget's def ID, and you'll notice for every widget holder there's a widget element tag with an ID ref, which is the widget's ID. And then I don't know what this was that I posted after that in my notepad. This might have just been a weird paste. But yeah, so there's a widget ID ref there with the actual widget ID. And when I open this up on my freeformatter.com website, and we look at that, that's our root widget holder. That's a background def. There's a widget. Okay. So here's your widget ID. No, I'm not farther down. Widget holder list. There we go. So there's a widget holder, and there's its widget tag right there. It's got an ID ref to the actual widget, scope owner. So what we do here is we take that ID ref tag. You'll notice that's an attribute, so we're using the string from attribute tag to get it out of that attribute. And you'll notice the attribute's part of the XML tag, so there's not a closing tag. They've got those 3 values as attributes. So if we need them, we're using string from attribute. And we put that into this widget def ID variable. And then what we do, because I mentioned there's a couple things on the dashboard that are technically widgets that aren't linked to stored widgets, what I do here is when we go to create this as a child item in our related tab here, we're saying if that widget's def ID is not empty, we want to record it. We'll export it and we'll multiply it and all that stuff. But if it's just a link, we don't need to do that. So we've got 4 values we're filling in. The parent rec ID, which is just a standard relationship. You know, it's not like a join table or a system thing or anything like that. This is just metadata we're recording. So there's a parent rec ID for an owners relationship. Then we've got a scope. This grabs our current widget holder def from the list. Then we take the element widget, which means there's our widget holder list. This is our current widget holder. And then there's widget with the ID and the scope and the persona. And here we're taking the scope attribute. And when we go to scope owner, same thing, but with the word owner at the end of our string from attribute. And for widget def ID, I just kind of paste it in our variable. That's all this does. And then at the end, when we've got updated business object, I'm just marking a logical so that we can say, hey, we finished scanning dashboards for widgets. I've put a link here, or I've put an image here with either a check mark or an exclamation point, and I've made the text kind of fancy. So based on that logical, it'll either say, click here to scan, or you've already scanned. So that's why we've got these fancy graphics. Next, we've got a output path that we need to figure out, because basically this is going to dump the contents of that dashboard and all the widgets into an XML file, and then I'm going to go and build an app, an executable file using the .NET framework that's going to loop through all of that and create copies and take one old def ID for a widget and turn it into a new one, and then loop through the dashboard and update references and all of that. And it's going to execute so much faster in a custom, purpose-built application. But basically, we're exporting a file. And to do that, we actually get a lovely Windows prompt here, which is pretty cool. I haven't actually figured out what I'm going to do for this, so I'm just going to type out DashCAM export file.xml save. Then we can see our DashCAM export file has been exported. If I bring up the system analyzer, we can see, hey, export file path. There's the item that I typed out and selected with my folder. And then our last link here is click here to export DashCAM file. Well, if I go back in here, this one-step functions using another map that we've built. So this took me 5 minutes or less to actually build, maybe 2 minutes. It wasn't difficult at all. This runs our one-step for save file dialog, which is in my none association in my one-step manager. And we've got our 3 one-steps here: open file dialog, open folder dialog, save file dialog. I'll open that one up so you can see it. And if you're not familiar with this map, it just runs a PowerShell script to give you a Windows save file prompt. So it writes it to a temp file. It runs PowerShell to execute that file. It uses this execution policy bypass so that if you haven't enabled running saved scripts on your machine, it should still run. And if it doesn't run, well, that's why. And then it just takes the output of that PowerShell script, reads it in using this selected file read file property, and then dumps it into a temp file, or a temp stored value, which is temp selected file. So all I have to do when I want to call one of those prompts is I run that one step, and then wherever I'm trying to use the value of that one step or that prompt, I just place my temp selected file stored value, which is here in our export file path field. So that's how that works, and we've got a graphic here in custom text that just checks whether that export file path field is empty or not. Now we get to the fun part, which is click here to export DashCAM file. So I haven't finished building this one out yet. We've got an export DashCAM file one step. And here we've got DashCAM file content starting tag. I know that this is going to have a lot of XML in it, and I'm just going to go through and say, here's the start of my XML file, here's the contents of the dashboard that I'm going to paste or append to it, which will be next, and then here's a collection of widget information, which I should probably declare. So here's our dashboard contents, which I'm working on. My step through children, I haven't done yet. I just kind of put it there, and then I realized I should probably work on the dashboard stuff first. And I got pretty far in writing out this dashboard thing, so you won't have to watch me write too much of it, because I got down to subtype, and then we've got target. I was really kind of wondering, should I build this and then demo it, or should I kind of record a video and show people how it was built? And I decided, you know what? There's at least one person who would want to see how this was built. So, worth it. So there's how we're getting. This is basically, this variable just sets all of the contents of our dashboard into an XML tag, which we'll append there, and our custom.NET app is going to read. And what I'm doing is I'm just starting an XML tag, and I don't remember off the top of my head what the next field's going to be. So I'm pasting in the next field token and then finishing my tags. And, of course, def version's always going to be 1.000, 3 zeros, but I don't want to make assumptions. Just in case, they change this in the future. I don't want this to break. Last mod by stuff we can change. Rec ID, I'm not sure I'm going to record the rec ID, because we'll use I'll do it for now, but we'll use another one later. If you see me paste in the same rec ID later on, I've made a mistake and deserve a face punch. Alright, so there's our rec ID. And then we've got stand-in localization. You know what, I'm just going to make an executive decision and capitalize that I, because I know I did in a different map that I was working on. And if I change it up now, even though it's not correct, I'll get confused later on. So that, I believe, that's everything. So then I'm going to end my dashboard def tag here. And just in case someone QAs this later on, what I'm going to do is... it didn't let me indent this all at once. Oh well. Shit. Basically just going to indent this so it looks pretty. So if we have to look at it later, we know, hey, there's our dashboard def. Here's the child elements or the fields for that XML there. Next, well, I guess what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to add that to my DashCAM file. Add dashboard def to DashCAM file. Here's our variable. DashCAM file will be itself plus our dashboard def. We've made that really simple, which is great. And then I guess I'm just going to start off our widget holder list. I'm just going to name it the same as they do in the dashboard, because Why not? Great. So here's our dashboard def. It's got all of its contents, then it's got def details. It might be a little confusing that I'm naming this widget holder list, and the inside of that dashboard's details is literally going to be, well, not this. It's literally going to be this, where it's going to say Trebuchet dashboard def, and at some point it'll have a widget holder list of its own, but that's fine. I'll be able to distinguish, hopefully. So next we're going to step through widgets, and we're going to build our widget list in XML. And you'll notice this is a step through children. It's not a step through collection. I'm trying to vary it up a little bit. Haha. No, really though, this is stepping through, and I don't have it on that window. This is stepping through our metadata here that holds, here's this widget's ID, here's where it's located. And just for like our end users, convenience, I put the names on here. This part's not really necessary, but this is just for them. We might give you the option to remove some of these if you don't want them exported and copied. So this is going to step through each widget in that metadata relationship. And what we're going to do is pretty boring. It's the same thing as that dashboard thing earlier. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable here. Oh, well, I guess I'm not, because we started our tag here, so this one will actually go over here. And what this will do is it will end our widget holder list. Or to be more appropriate, it will close it. And we'll say at this point, because we're going to have a lot of updates in there, we're going to take our DashCAM file and add an end tag for widget holder list. So there's where that XML collection element starts. There's where it ends. And in here is where it's going to get built. So this will actually go onto our DashCAM file. We're going to add widget. And then I bet you can kind of figure out where this is going. I'm going to copy this item right here because, fun fact, dashboards and widgets are, whoa, that keyboard combination does something differently when you're in a one-step. Okay, I'm going to copy this because the structure is the same. You have the same fields because they're part of the same table. Get rid of my dashboard def, and I'll add in end tag for widget. End tag, or I'll get rid of that dashboard def tag as well. Boom! Here's the fields we care about. Oh yeah, this is the widget. Okay. For a moment I got super confused. Okay, so this is our alias. Instead of pulling it out of that metadata, there's another relationship to the actual widget here. So I'm in my administrator tool. I'm going to back out of this to show you that. So on our supporting object, we've got our DashCAM widget, and it has a relationship to the Trebuchet widgets table, where the widget's ID and the scope owner are all the same, and it's marked as ignore the rule of 2 so that it'll load even when it's a third-party relationship. And what that does is it lets me pull data off of that third-party widget's information. It's great. That way we don't have to do a bunch of, go to this record, do this, other kind of lookup record information actions. So we've got our def alias. Oh, did I have an extra XML tag there? There is an extra character. So we've got def culture. I'm going to go make sure I didn't screw that up here. I did! Look at that! Copying and pasting saved the day. Alright, so we've got def description. I've just realized I'm going to have to pay a lot of attention to where I'm at in this list, because this token that we've updated looks a lot like this token that we haven't updated, because it's on the same table. Def details, def flags, def folder, def ID. Yeah, so some of this stuff gets tedious if you're trying to make changes to your Cherwell database, or build a map that makes changes to your Cherwell database, or does anything with your Cherwell database using just like the plain XML. It can get a little tedious to do it the right way. But, you know, that's it's the only way to do it. That's not a complaint either. That's just like, that's the scope of how much work is involved when you talk about a system like this. Like, it's built very well as far as how everything's structured in the database. There's a lot of, like, for instance, you'll notice there's XML elements for every item in this. I'm putting XML elements here for every item in this list of fields. They also have inside your def details field is also most of this information, because if you look at it in the def editor, you need to be able to update a lot of that. So you've got, this stuff is in columns in the database so that you can search for it with the application and do certain things. And then it's also inside def details so that you can see it in the def editor, which is kind of neat. So the way they structure this is kind of nice, but it's also kind of difficult to make changes to. Okay, so actually, I think that's it. That's all I needed to do with the step through collection, or step through children, is build my widget list. So that's our widget list. It gets added incrementally to our DashCAM file, and then afterwards we close the widget list stuff. I don't think I added DashCAM file, the variable, to the beginning of this, so this would just be overwriting, so I need to add that before all of this other stuff. Boom! There's my file. Closes the widget holder list. And then what we're going to do builds off of that last step where we selected an export file. And we're going to export to the file name, export file path. Our contents are going to be our DashCAM file thing here. We definitely want this in plain text format, and we definitely want it done before the next sub step. Get in a habit of clicking those two items in those drop downs unless you explicitly need otherwise. And that's it. I'm going to test it. There's no harm in that, right? I don't need to scan across cultures right now. Actually, I'm just not going to scan. And I'm going to get rid of at least one of these two records because I only need the one. Alright, so previously we selected a dashboard, we scanned widgets in from that dashboard, we selected where we wanted to export our DashCAM metadata file, and now we're going to export that file. So it took a couple minutes for that one step to execute, so I've trimmed that out of my video here. The dashboard has been, the file has been exported. I don't think my one step toggled anything here for this to go to a green check mark, but I'm going to go find that file. Hey, we've got a DashCAM export file. It's about 1 megabyte in size, that's about what I expected. I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to take it to my freeformatter.com website, and we'll just kind of take a look at that so that we can kind of visualize how it's structured. That's a big copy and paste. That took a little while. And I'm noticing at the end of it, maybe my copy and paste was too large. Nope. We've got a slight issue. at the end of our file here, we've just got a widget. We don't have the right information there. So that's probably not going to work when we try to view the structure here, because we ended with a widget instead of the end of our widget collection. So when I go and look at that one step, it's ending that variable right here instead of right here. Oh, well, that's why. That's funny. So there's the end of our widget holder list. And we also need to finish our file. So at the beginning here, we've got DashCAM. The other thing I left out was an end tag for DashCAM. Okay, so now, embarrassingly, I need to do that again. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to add that update business object thing so we get our pretty checkmark graphic saying, hey, your DashCAM file's been exported, buddy. Again, not going to scan. I'm practicing unsafe Cherwell. So there's all of that, there's that. We're going to reload defs. Go back to our DashCAM record, and I'm going to export it again. Alright, and our file has been exported now. I think I screwed up one of my text expressions here because they both say that they were exported, so I'm going to go take a look at that before I open the file. So this says click here to select the output file path, and then once it's DashCAM export file path has been exported, has been selected. That's what that's supposed to say. Anyways, if I refresh here, here's our export file. I'm going to edit it with Notepad++. And we should notice all the way at the bottom, we now have an end widget tag, an end widget holder list tag, and an ending DashCAM tag, which means we can go into our formatting web page here. We can blow all this away, we can paste this in, and when we try to format it, we should get a nice clean result that we can kind of step through and look at. I think we did. Oh no. Error on line 277. The element type dashboard def must be terminated by matching end tag dashboard def. That's interesting. I'll have to take a look at that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this into Notepad++ because otherwise we might not have the same lines. Alright, so I'm going to scroll all the way down until I find line 277. No, that's right here for DashCAM. It's not the error I was looking at. So it's saying the element type dashboard def must be terminated by the end tag dashboard def. You know what? I've figured it out. If I go back in here and I go up to my dashboards information, we've got a dashboard def thing here. And let's see. There's the alias, there's the def details. I'll have to scroll down a bit to find the closing tag for def details. That'll be wherever the next line is. I apologize for the wall of text. I'm just gonna Control F that one. There we go. There's the end tag for def details. There's the rest of the dashboard information. There's the end for def stand-in localization. And then there's another tag for the word dashboard def. Doesn't have the ending slash on it. Be right here. I made a silly mistake. Great. I'm just going to add that to my thing here because if that's all that's wrong and I've already corrected it, we don't need to go through the 3 or 4 minute export process again. I'm going to click Format. You'll notice I'm kind of using this just to test my XML, because this time it actually gave me a file, which is kind of neat. I'm going to go to my downloads and I'm just going to open that. In Notepad++. And look at that. So here's the export of our file that I was looking at, just so I could show you what's going on. We've got a dashboard def. Here's all the information for our dashboard. There's the def details, and you can see there's, the contents of that dashboard that we were looking at earlier under that. Oh, and Notepad++ does something cool. It lets you collapse this. So there's your def details on your dashboard. There's all the details for that, and then you've got your widget holder list, which is the other 23,000 lines, or the other 20,000 lines of this text file, I suppose, which is here's a widget, here's another widget, here's another widget, and there's all the information for those widgets. So all I need to do with my .NET application is go through each one of these widgets, take the def ID, which is going to be after this def details tag here. It'll be right here. For each of these widgets, I'm going to paste this def ID into an array that holds the rest of the widget's information. Maybe not even the rest of the widget's information. I could just leave it in this list, but I'll have an array. It'll have all of these little tags with the def ID, and then a new def ID that I'll generate. And when I go to export this, it'll take the new def ID and it'll paste it into a file. I'm going to create a CED file that holds that dashboards widgets that you can just import through the manager. And it'll paste in the new widget ID and it'll hold that in that array. And then when we paste out the dashboards information all the way at the top of this list, it's going to loop through the def details here. And every time it finds that widget's ID under the widget holder list right here, which would be here's a widget holder, here's the widget holder's ID, and then, wait for it, I might be looking at the wrong one. There's supposed to be a widget item in this list. Maybe, there it is. There's the widget, and then there's the widget's ID. Every time it finds that matching widget's ID, it's going to replace it with the new one that we're going to generate, which is going to be the copy. And we'll be left with 2 different CED files, or maybe a blueprint. It could be a blueprint. There's no problem with that. And then you just publish it, and it'll have the dashboard and the widgets. And that's it. That's the simplicity of this map. And I'm not going to go into programming it out in .NET on this video because that's kind of outside the scope of Cherwell. And, I don't want you to be able to go and recreate all of my maps just from a YouTube video. So feel free to post any questions. That's how we built out this map while we're working on it. I've got a few finishing touches for the actual Cherwell side of this, which may get added to this video and may not. For example, it took me 3 or 4 minutes for this one step to finish running. I might add a section where we can have an automation process engine. Just, like you click export DashCAM file and it says, this is going to take a few minutes. Do you want us to let you know when it's done? And it does it in the background, or maybe it emails the file to you when it's done. We can go through a couple of those routes, but for now, this video is done. So thanks for watching, and definitely subscribe if you want to see other videos like this in the future. And this has been our DashCAM map from DefEdit Software.